I thought about the idea of defensive teaching. I think sometimes that's what we do. We are teaching, defending ourselves from people leaving the class after the second class.
I am a mega nerd for body mechanics, and that's what I would focus on first, because this is the biggest struggle with everybody dancing any dance style out there. They struggle within their own body, not necessarily the dance itself.
The main issue for me is that we need time. That's the dream scenario. The dream is the dream of time, and the people are okay with spending the time.
Look, if we had classes every night, maybe 5 times a week, I think we would get to head movements after 6 months.
Yeah. I think I would release them into the wild and then see what happens. That should be very fascinating. They learn driving in the suburbs, but then, okay, let's go to the traffic, Botafogo, Rio de Janeiro, and see what happens.
How long is this going to take? I don't know. I know that the people that are good have been dancing for like 6-10 years. So I'm expecting to take that long to get to a good level. And let's just be clear here. When we're talking about 6 years of dancing, we're talking about dancing pretty much every night, including Saturday and Sunday trainings, not just once a week, 6 years. Okay, let's dream with me here. What if we could learn to dance without the stress of getting it right? Imagine spending months just finding your own rhythm before ever touching a partner. Could taking the pressure off actually make you a better dancer? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to ZoukNerds. In this episode, Gui and I imagine the ultimate Zouk dream world. We talk about why we'd spend months on body mechanics, how to teach hard skills through magic tricks, and why having more time is the greatest gift a student can get. Let's explore how to find the real heart of your dance. So, let's go! Hello everyone, and welcome back. My name is Alisson Sanji, and let's welcome our beautiful co-host, Gui Prada. Hello, Gui.
Hello, Alisson. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to ZoukNerds.
Oh my God, guys, this episode is something that we're so excited about. It's a happy one. We've been doing a few heavy ones, but this one is going to clear the air and hopefully uplift your dance dreams, because we're imagining this dream world where we have this group of students that maybe is going to be with us for 2 or 3 years, and they're just gonna learn dance. More specifically, Brazilian Zouk. So picture this. You have a group of students, everything's paid for, nobody has to worry about anything, and the whole project is to learn from zero, all the way until as much as we can, and then they will jump into the Brazilian Zouk world community. How would we teach them if we didn't have all the distractions of the world, or the fear that the students are not going to enjoy this exercise or that exercise, and so many things that comes with teaching, the anxieties of teaching, the stress of planning a curriculum in a way that keeps people challenged and engaged, but at the same time that we're teaching them the good things and the soft skills. How would we start? Let's go, Gui. What would be your first stage for this group?
So as you were saying, a term came to mind. I thought about the idea of defensive teaching. I think sometimes that's what we do. We are doing defensive teaching. We are teaching, defending ourselves from people leaving the class after the second class, defending from this fear that is moving too slow. You know, there's all these things that we are trying to address in the desire to retain people and desire to, at the same time, teach what we think is important while preparing them for the jungle there when they go to the sources and things. So if those were not concerns, Oh my gosh, where would I start? After my observations, teaching all these years, I think weight transfer, rhythm, and playing with dynamics are the three main things I would spend a lot more time on. A lot more time. Like Alice was saying, if this group is there and not wondering why we're doing certain exercise or not getting frustrated or bored because we're doing the same thing for 2 hours already. If I had a container that everything is good to go, I would spend more time in weight transfers, in walking, and I would spend more time in the rhythm, but more in slowing down and picking back up, slowing down and picking back up, and being very intentional and very good at communicating those dynamic changes. So these three things. And in partner work, we would spend much more time in the beginning just understanding the basic steps, front and back basic, linear basic, going into lateral and back, and slowing it down, speeding back up, and again, very clear weight transfers. And when I say clear weight transfers, I mean with a good posture, with a stable posture, clearly in one leg, clearly on the other leg, meaning your whole center of gravity, your center of mass moves to one leg, moves to the other leg. So getting that understanding. And the torsion, the contrabody motion. I would spend also a lot more time in that configuration of stepping forward, contrabody, stepping back, contrabody. So weight shifts on the spot, weight shifts on the walk, slow the downbeat, on the beat, then on the rhythm, then doing that with a partner, Wi-Fi, with connection, and going to the rhythm, going to the beat, going to the downbeat, and playing with these variations of dynamics. From there, or concurrently, I would work on aspects of connection, borrowing a lot of principles from contact improv. So using contact improv exercise and elements so we can understand more about compression, we can understand more about leverage, and we can understand more about modulation of tension on the body, and the beautiful, amazing principle of minimal effort. And that being the tool for connection, that being like the initial tool for connection, because contact improv is very playful, a lot of games involved, so you can learn about all these very important and subtle skill principles while you're playing. So I think that would be really fun to do as well. So I think I would spend, I don't know, maybe the first month or two just in these structures. Basic lateral viradinha, slow down, speed up, contact improv, and repeat. Just that. What about you, Addison? How'd you start?
I think I would be before you. So let's say we're in the same school and we're taking turns in teaching. So maybe I'll come before your classes, because what I would like to do is to spend the first few weeks, at least a good month, on the body before the partner work. Absolutely before the partner work. I know it's a partner dance, but we're thinking about a dream world here. How much time we have to spend at the same time that we're teaching partner dance. We have to spend so much time on teaching people how to understand their own body. So that's where I would go to. Still focusing on the things that you said, you know, the weight transfer, all of those things, but in a solo way, which is maybe already a dream world that I kind of live in, because most of my classes, a good portion is on solo training. But that's where I would go at the very, very beginning. Teaching people how to understand from their feet to the head, how each part moves, how much engagement they need for each type of movement, where is the balance in their body, where is the energy generated for each type of movement, and all of those things. I am a mega nerd for body mechanics, and that's what I would focus on first.
When I say about all the walking, the weight transfer and these things, I would do solo. The only partner part we would have more would be the contact improv as this way to introduce contact. But a lot of things would be solo, mostly like half or 60% of the class, solo first, and then with contact.
Yeah, so I think we're on the same page because then with the body mechanics, I would then incorporate some mirroring dancing exercises and then some contact dancing exercises before the structure of Brazilian Zouk. So building the body of a dancer. And maybe, just maybe, after that first phase, they could actually migrate and go into another style and still have a good, strong foundation of what is to be a dancer. That's where I would love to start because I think that this is the biggest struggle with everybody dancing any dance style out there. They struggle within their own body, not necessarily the dance itself. It's something that we see day in, day out. People who are still not aware of what their hips are doing, what their shoulders are doing, how to roll their feet. All of those things that for me, it took a long time as well because I didn't really have those detailed instructions. Most of the teachers that I had at the very beginning were very natural dancers. So they didn't break things down for me. But once I started learning from more nerdy teachers who would really take their time and break things down and move super slow, that's when I was like, oh my God, I love this. So yeah, if we had all of the threats from people walking away from dancing removed, I would spend a good 1 to 2 months on that first stage of getting to know your body and how to communicate with your body in a way that you can communicate with another person.
Nice. Yeah. I think I would do a hybrid of a lot of solo work and some partner work in the beginning. Similar in the idea of not too much in the structures of the dance. I think the basic structure would be back and forth, basic lateral, going in and out of it. So that incorporates viradinha. And we would just do this to an extent that just doing this would start to feel enough. And that's the dream. So the people start to feel this joy of just going back and forth, the joy of just going side to side. Because what you mentioned, Alison, knowing their bodies, it is indeed something really, really challenging because this, for me, it speaks to the idea of embodiment, idea of noticing your body, feeling the movements of your body, seeing your body as, or perceiving your body with qualities and sensitivity that you would not normally otherwise. Because the main issue with partner dancing in general is you teach the dance to be led and followed. So you have the codes to lead and follow, and we are executing the codes. But whether or not the person is feeling that rotation in their hips, they're feeling their feet on the floor. And by feeling, I mean, they can notice it, control it, they can change it. So the embodiment is when you become more intentional about the movements that you do, and you really feel the movement of your arms, the movement of your hands. You close your eyes and you can notice those things going. And you can choose the size of things and the speed of things. As Alison knows, for sure, we have been teaching for all these years, and sometimes we have been seeing people progressing their dance journey for 6-7 years, and you take them out of the social dance, their bodies, they don't feel comfortable moving their bodies on their own. So the movement, the dance becomes very much associated with lead and follow someone else. And bringing the movement to your body on your own, that would create such an easier path, I think, when we talk about the subtle skills of lead and follow, the subtle skills of connection. So I think that would be such a dream such a dream if we can really just do that for a couple months. After that, I will move into introducing the structures of the dance, not going through the fundamental patterns, but going through the principles. So first, understanding for me the tracks of the dance, the track that the follower is and the tracks that the leader is, and how we navigate the tracks. So basically, doing the basic footwork of track navigation. So the followers becoming really good and really balanced and keeping that direction in pivot and in basic, and the leaders getting really fluent and moving around the tracks and staying on the right side, the follow, the left side, the follow in front, behind, doing all of these things, and then eventually introduce the footwork of changing direction and changing where the tracks are. So then you add one more layer. So this, I think, would be my first layer, because we have the back and forward basic, we have the viradinha, we have the lateral. We can move into, okay, let's expand, let's explore these things. And now we move more into hand-to-hand connection more. And then we're gonna move into flexibility of shoulders, so more elements of embodiment and finding the freedom of moving inside these very known structures, so understanding these really safe containers that we can expand on. So then there'll be another month or two just doing this before we even think about turning. What about you, Alisson? What will be the next step?
Well, if I continue from where you are, yes, I would probably go into like the difference between the linear structures and the circular structures, which then introduce some turns, like Soltinho or other movements. But I'm trying to avoid naming names here for movements, so we're not too limited. But yeah, the structures of linear, circular, and traveling. Those things are like the bread and butter of social dancing. It's something that I really encourage my students to understand, that once you know those three things, you can dance with anybody. Anybody. I'm not saying you can do anything, because yes, there's still a lot of different things that we haven't covered, but you can dance with anybody. Somebody who understands the linears and the circulars and the traveling structures, you can dance with anyone in the social, at least one beautiful song, if not multiple songs, have fun, enjoy, and make both of you actually feel like that dance was complete, even though we didn't have the higher level things. That's kind of like the first stage goal for me. I want my students to feel like they can have multiple songs dance with one person or with multiple people, and without a lot, they still feel like it was a complete meal. And they had dessert, even a little dessert here, maybe with some musical things, dynamic things, or some body movement before we get to the crazy stuff.
Yeah, I agree so much with that, because if we have that more embodied experience, we already can slow down and speed up. We are more aware of tension. We are all more aware of pressure, elasticity. When we build, I think after this moment of that slow progression, after, let's say, this first 4, 5, 6 months, from there, I think everything's going to start moving so fast, because the structures are now there, are not set. So, for example, after you change the directions and you introduce the turns, so you introduce what will be all the variations of simple turn, from the basic, from the side basic, traveling, all the variations of it. And then you introduce the bonus principle, a turn and a half, and then you introduce the Soltinho principle. Then you have the whole dance. The whole dance is there. Now that I think of it, that we are discussing this thing, Alisson, I think it's more because we're doing defensive teaching. We end up bringing these things that we would do later anyway, earlier, But now that I think of it, if we maybe gave ourselves more time in this earlier structure, we could still cover the whole thing in like a year and a half. We still cover a lot of ground in a year and a half. So we would have a slow start. But because the structures are so much more understood, once we start introducing more things, maybe retention of content will be faster, will be better. I don't know. I've been toying with these ideas. I've been playing with these ideas of, for example, let's just teach this one structure here for 12 hours, for 5, 6 hours. Let's see what happens, And you see that there is a way to do this where people stay engaged, they stay in it because they start seeing the richness of what is there in that structure. But we still have this limitation of footwork. The structure is there, we can play with the structure, but to play with the structure, at least from the leader's perspective, variety of footwork is really helpful in building confidence. So another thing about defensive teaching is by giving people more of the patterns of the things, we are also giving them what they think they need to feel confident to go out and social dance. If we had a perfect environment where that's not a problem, I think that confidence will be built as a natural progression without the need to hurry in developing or helping develop that confidence. And I think in this more controlled environment too, in this fantasy, the points of reference that exist are each other. So I think it will be easier in this way as well, because the people will not think that they will need to know this much in order to go out and dance, which is another issue that we have with Brazilian Zouk. People think that they need to know a lot of things of the dance in order to go out and social dance. So after all the footwork structures, and we didn't talk about traveling as well. So we start introducing the idea of traveling too. So basic tracks, understanding, then we change direction, then we introduce some turns, then we introduce the traveling, the circular structures, and then from there, build the head movements. So Alison, how would you slowly build the head movements in this laboratory? Where would you start? How much time would you spend in this initial structure that you're going to share? Because I think I know what you're going to do, what you would do. I don't want to know. How long would you stay in that thing?
Look, if we had classes every night, maybe 5 times a week, I think we would get to head movements after 6 months. If we're talking about what we normally have now, which is like 1 class per week or maybe 2 classes per week at most, and I still would have that dream group, I would probably take a year and a half or 2 to get to head movements, because I would like to explore pretty much everything that is there to explore before the head movements. Yeah. Now, with that answer, I would say that I would also make sure that the body movements are all covered. The undulations, the isolations, the flow of energy from down up, from side to side, up, down, all of those things. If we already have covered that during all the mechanics, then we can get to head movement. But I wouldn't necessarily get into head movement with the topic of getting to head movement. Stay with me here. This is going to be a little tricky, but I would get into the topic of head movement as a body movement exercise or as a body movement topic. So we've worked on body movement for the hips, for the legs, for the chest, for the shoulders, for the neck, for the arms. And now we are incorporating the top, the very, very top, where instead of just doing undulations and keeping like the head stable, we're going to do undulations and allow the head to go all the way sideways or maybe forwards and back, which kind of can already be incorporated earlier in the body movement part. But this time it would be like head movement, but without doing the peon, the balloon, the things that we normally think of head movement when we see a workshop or a weekender about head movement, right? And from there, going like, okay, so now we're going to use that circular motion in the peon. Now we're going to use that circular motion in the basic step. Instead of putting this idea that in a head movement class, you're going to learn the head movement. It's more like you're going to learn how to use your body to create new shapes. What are those shapes? Well, those shapes, they are in the group of movements that expresses the movement mostly from the top. So with your spine, which results into what we see as head movement. So it's a little complex here. I hope you guys understand my brain, because sometimes I don't. But that's how I would think about it. Head movements as a body movement, not as a new topic like counterbalance or spins. More as a continuation of the fundamentals of body mechanic and connection. Which, to be honest, honestly, that to me is when head movement feels the most amazing. When it's part of a whole body experience, not when it's just the top of the spine moving. Yeah.
That makes sense to me, man. That makes sense to me. That was very clear, actually. And I like that idea a lot of making the head movement be like a continuation of body movement, continuation of the undulations, continuation of spine movements that we start doing. And now that you said all of this, that you shared all of this, I started thinking again about this structure. Because in this dream scenario would be to bring more of these ideas or these ways of teaching that are more common when I was learning, in where the learning of the structures is combined with the learning of the sensations, how it feels, how the dance can feel like. In that first part that we talked about, that would be very present from the start. How can we make this feel really good? That's why it wouldn't be rushed. That's why we would take that long with that part, because we will be also addressing how it feels to walk together. The clarity of slowing down and speeding up again. So how everything feels like would be very present from day one. And with that idea that after things go, they go, the feeling of things would be implemented there. There are, however, more complicated topics like elasticity, flow, use of momentum to lead, that are also related to how the dance feels like, would be also incorporated, very much incorporated into these dream scenarios. So for example, we'd spend all this time in the start, and then after a certain point, we saw all the structures here. Now, let's make them feel amazing. So there will be an aspect of experimentation, doing with each other, give and receive of feedback. So we also engage the process of horizontal learning, where people learn from each other based on how they share with each other, how something can feel better for them. And start working on these more complex topics of, like we said, elasticity and stuff like that through lab-like classes that are not only or in the structures. And that would include the body movements as well, so much, because sometimes one is doing body movements and the other one is leading and the other one is receiving the lead without necessarily matching the emotions. So it'll be, especially body movements that take more time. I think the body movements would take more time than the walks and the weight shifts to really feel really good doing together. So now that you mentioned, Alison, the body movements, I think the same amount of time that was spent in the beginning with the walking and the weight shifts and other things would be as much or more for the body movements in our own bodies, solo embodiment, and then giving as much time as needed to do them together with the goal of feeling incredible. Also, I think that I would start focusing on that, actually.
When you think about it, let's just be honest here. Back then, 20, 30 years ago, it was that dream group scenario, right? We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have social media. We didn't have what to compare.
That's very true.
We didn't have people looking at videos and going like, oh, I want to learn this crazy thing. What we had was our beautiful teacher showing how beautiful the dance is. And that was our world. Like, God, back in my dance school, I think you were probably a beginner for the first 3 years. 3 to 5 years, you're still a beginner. Like, people who were considered somewhat advanced, they were dancing 10 plus years easy. Easy. Because that was the environment.
Yeah, it took 6 years for you to be an assistant at the dance studio, the Jaime Rocha Dance Studio. All assistants had at least 6 years of dancing.
And let's just be clear here. When we're talking about 6 years of dancing, to get to an assistant level, we're talking about dancing pretty much every night, including Saturday and Sunday trainings for assistants, for teachers, for teams and things like that. Not just once a week, 6 years. Because that was similar to my school as well. My school was not a Jaime Rocha school, but it was kind of like a Jaime Rocha method type of school. All of my teachers went to Jaime Rocha in Rio to learn constantly every few months. So we followed that same path where if you are jumping from student into more like becoming part of the bolsista, trainee, and then assistant, that becomes your second full-time job. You're there all the time. And you're not just there during dance classes. You're there working for the school. You're doing admin, you're doing cleaning, you're doing organizing, you're doing a bunch of things because you really became part of the community. You became part of the family. But yeah, that was just a note that I wanted to make, that I think teachers back then, they did have sort of this environment where they could take their time and teach however they wanted to, because those classes were very much like, what are you going to learn today? I don't know. My teacher is going to teach me. What style? I don't know. My teacher is going to teach me. I'm going to a dance class. How long is this going to take? I don't know. I know that the people that are good have been dancing for like 6-10 years. So I'm expecting to take that long to get to a good level. I'm not expecting to be done and, not think that I need to learn anything after 6 months or 12 months. Very, very complex.
Exactly. I think that awareness that it took that long made me feel very little rushed for anything. I knew it was going to happen because I could feel the difference in their body. Then. But since these days are gone, I'm thinking now in this dream scenario. And as I talk about this dream scenario, I'm starting to realize that in a way, I think we are already implementing some of these things, or we're getting better at conveying these things that take longer in a way that people still feel engaged,
We're becoming better tricksters. We're becoming better, hey, look here. Tum.
Exactly.
Kind of making people look at the one direction, but then we're kind of like injecting some of the important things. While they're looking at the beautiful colors, we're injecting some of the difficult things that they need to learn. Yeah.
I think we're kind of doing stuff like this already,
Yeah, I agree.
The thing, though, is that we are doing this thing already more to those who are already hooked in the dance. And in this dream scenario, would be doing this to people, to complete muggles. They're coming in, they don't know what's going on. So that will be, I think, the next phase to try to implement this in reality. But as we talk about this dream scenario, I'm realizing that for me, what is being important is also giving time for the soft skills and also giving time for how the dance feels like. And not necessarily doing the classes and the exercises for them to always have a perceivable outcome, where the student comes in knowing how to do something they didn't know when they came in. When they leave, knowing this thing that they didn't know before they arrived. And normalizing again this idea that they will come to class and they will leave class still not knowing something new. But more and more aware that their bodies are learning something. Their bodies are incorporating something of what we just did. The main issue for me is that we need time. That's the thing. I think in this dream scenario, actually, Alison, as I think about it, the dream is the dream of time, of having time, of we are receiving the time and the people are okay with spending the time. Because in a way, I think we are already doing the things of the dream scenario. We just take less time because we might, we need to teach them something new because otherwise it's already the third week we're doing the same thing. Let's do something new. We don't necessarily want to do something new after the third week because we want to, but because we think we need. Otherwise, we're going to lose the engagement or nothing's going to happen. And sometimes after the third week, it's good to give something else just to shake it off, then we come back. There are these two possibilities too. But the more we talk about it, the more I realize that for me, the dream is to have time. Is to have time with people. And in that time that I am receiving from them, we are all engaged in the task of developing a dance that feels really good. It feels enough, and we don't struggle to practice or to learn. That everything feels easy. The body feels at ease. The mind feels at ease. Because with very little, like a weight transfer and a walk, we're still having a great time, So I'm going to think about that after this episode is over a lot and see how I can put that more into practice.
Yeah, I was just doing some calculations here because that's my brain. And if we think about 90 minutes classes per week, okay? 90 minutes classes per week, 52 weeks a year, we have 3.25 days of dance classes per year. Guys, if you want to be good at something, do you think that learning something for 3.25 days a year is enough? If we want to learn language, we do at least an hour a day. Or, if you want to learn proficiently in a short amount of time, like if you give yourself 1 or 2 years to learn a language proficiently, fluently, you're going to give yourself at least a good 30 minutes a day or a few hours per week. If you want to be qualified on something to be able to teach, you're going to have to spend multiple hours a week, maybe 2 full days, 3 full days, doing a course for a whole year or 2 to be able to teach that, or to be able to be at a certain level where you can maybe become an assistant to that skill, whatever that skill is. So when we think about dancing, that, 52 hours a year, or maybe 70, 80, 100 hours a year, that's nothing. That's why the dream is to have so much more. And this is just a side note. Sorry, I just got thinking about numbers and I had to bring that up. But yeah, I wish that we would have more than 1 class per week as standard. Just like what we used to have in Brazil. Every course that you sign up, it's either Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. You have to pick. And you should always be attending both classes per week. Because, I don't know, it's just not enough to do 1 class and expect a transformation. Or, honestly, transformation is a big word here, but expect a decent progress after 6 months and look back and go well, I've spent 6 months of my life in this. How much did I get? I'm sorry, but if you've done 1 class a week and you haven't done any extra practice or social or anything else, you might be disappointed with what you can achieve in 6 months. And then you might think, you know what, this is not for me. I don't want to do this anymore. But is the problem the dance or how much you've invested in it? Just like a language. If I learn a language 1 hour per week, after 6 months, I'm not going to have a lot to show, or maybe even have a decent conversation. Especially if it's a language that is very, very different from my primary language. Yeah, let's say Japanese, Chinese, or something like that. And Brazilian Zouk, to be honest, is not one of those easy ones. Not one of those easy ones, because in its very, very pure form, it can be easy, right? If we strip away all of the other extra things that makes Brazilian Zouk exciting, we can have a simpler language model. But when we get deep enough that we want to explore the beautiful things that Brazilian Zouk offer that maybe other dances don't, then you really need to get deep in it. Really, really deep in it. Yeah. I think now going back to what we were talking about, the next part, I think I really would invest a lot of time on dealing with unexpected things. So creating scenarios where things actually don't work. Because let's be honest, this group has been learning together for a long time. So it's very hard for things not to work, because they're like part of this breed of people that all drink the same water. But the reality is not that, like you may learn how to drive in the back streets of the suburb, but once you get to the real streets, things are going to be different. So I would actually create environments where things don't work, which is something that we do in some of the dance team trainings, dance labs and things like that, where we challenge timing, challenge connection, challenge things by maybe just dancing with one hand, maybe only moving towards one direction, or sometimes I keep skipping the music, so the timing that they're dancing is actually going to be off because I jumped the music, and then people go like, oh my God, I need to find the timing. And I'm like, yes, you need to find the timing, but you cannot stop dancing. You have to continue dancing, continue stepping, and maybe skip a bit, maybe hold a bit, maybe double your footwork to make sure that you come back on timing and don't lose the connection, don't lose the flow. Introducing these kind of things before I get to maybe the more complex combinations. So it's kind of like, okay, we got the structure, we've got some of the yummy stuff. Now let's break things up a little bit, because everything was too proper for now, before we get to more the creative, complex ideas of the dance.
Yeah. I think I would release them into the wild. After getting to the body movements and things, I think I'll release them into the wild and then see what happens. That should be very fascinating, because like Addison said, and they learned in the suburbs, then driving in the suburbs, then, okay, let's go to the traffic, Botafogo, Rio de Janeiro, and see what happens. And I think it would be fascinating actually to see that thing happening, and then come back and discuss how was it for you, what happened, how it was. We already have some sort of elements of that happening when somebody just trains and learns in one place, in one location, in their city, and then they go somewhere else, and then they, oh my God, I don't know how to dance, what just happened, and then they come back with this hunger to learn. However, I think that teaching in this way, even if we are training in the suburbs, I think we'll be more or better equipped to deal with adversities, because in the training, there was a lot of things involved in perceiving variations in connection, perceiving variations in compression, in elasticity, perceiving variations in size of steps, variations in speed of steps. So in theory, the skill of adapting, the adaptability of the dancer would be higher, perhaps, because we are more attuned with the body, we are more embodied, we are more attuned with the soft skills of connection and touch. So be a matter of, maybe it'll be more intuitive for them to adapt, noticing the differences, but not getting shaken by the differences. Just noticing them, oh my God, it's very different, but knowing how to adapt. I think that could possibly happen. I remember I stayed for many years just dancing at the Jaime studio. And I remember when I went to a social outside for the first time, it was very strange. There were several things that I couldn't do. But because we focused so much on connection, I could perceive the changes and mold into them. The things that I couldn't adapt was things that I really didn't train. For example, dancing to fast songs in samba de gafieira, or all the jumpy stuff in samba as well, stuff that we never trained. But when leading, I could perceive, oh, I need to step smaller with this partner, because if I step big, we're going to lose this connection here. So in the end, it would be, like it was still a safe environment. But I think because the tools we gave, people would still be able to do well in the jungle after they are released from the laboratory.
Yes, I think they would be so much better equipped. There are pros and cons to a controlled environment. Speaking as people who learned English as a second language, we learned English in this English school. We're learning with the same people, learning the same thing, saying the same things in class. So we can have the same level of conversation. But then you go on the street and you ask somebody for direction, and they start talking like regular people do on the streets. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done this level. I haven't covered this other thing. Then you kind of realize that, yes, what you know is good in the environment that you are. But once you get out of the environment, you need different skills. And that's kind of, I think, the next phase, which I would spend a lot of time on, to make sure that they're better equipped. Sometimes we do in dance labs and weekenders, and we go like, okay, everybody, now we're going to do an exercise, which is kind of like dancing in Brazil. We put a bunch of chairs around the corner of the room. We put 30 couples in the same space that maybe 3 couples would dance. And then we'll say, everybody, welcome to Brazilian party. There's no space. There's 100 people in a place for 20. Let's go. So kind of doing these drills and exercises to get people used to situations that they may encounter. Because it's funny, like even our students back in DC, they are spoiled for space. And then they go up to New York City dancing at Solas on Tuesday night. Bro, good luck. It's scary. Then the other type of skills like music. What kind of music do you dance to? That influences a lot, because you may go to a dance party that plays completely different music from what you used to listen to. Some people only listen to remix. Other people only dance to traditional. And then when they listen to something else, they're like, oh, I don't know how to dance to this. It's so complex or so repetitive. People who love remix, they say traditional is too repetitive. People who love traditional, they say that remix is too crazy. Oh, man, there's so many things. It kind of gets me excited. I wish I could just do that. I would offer a group and go like, look, if you sign this contract that you're going to give me 1 year, at least 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, I'll train these people, no pay. No pay. Just for the pleasure of seeing these people like really understanding everything that is to understand in a way that they're going to feel so happy and fulfilled. And as a teacher, of course, I would feel so accomplished to see these people like feeling the power of knowledge in dance and not feeling the pressure from the outside world to be something or to achieve something. More like a power that they discovered within, not a power that they were chasing because they were looking outside.
Yeah. I think we can find people like that who are already dancing and are really excited and really dedicated. The dream is to find those who don't dance yet, and go over it. But after this episode, I'm really thinking that we can bring certain or several elements of this dream-like scenario into what we already have, I think we can do it. And after some time, we'll let you guys know here what we were able to implement after this conversation.
Absolutely. And hopefully, guys, this was once again a very informative and helpful episode. And if you like this, please help us by following, subscribing, sharing, and helping us grow this passion project of ours that we love so much. We hope you're enjoying too. And we'll see you on the next one. So thank you, everybody. Beijos, beijos, abraços, and ciao.
Bye, everybody.